achievements of all women who support excellence and success at every level of the Houston Independent School District. Now, therefore, we, the HISD Board of Education and the Superintendent of Schools, do hereby proclaim March 2022 Women's History Month in HISD. And we encourage all to join in this observance and expression of appreciation for the contributions of women, and witness thereof on this 10th day of March 2022.
Thank you, Trustee Wade. I also want to acknowledge former trustee, the Honorable Ann Sung, that's in the audience today. Please note that as per board policy, all speakers are being reduced to 1 minute each this evening due to the large number of speakers for agenda items and the hearing of the community. We are conducting our hearing of the community in two parts to prioritize our students who have signed up to speak. We have 4 hearing of the community student speakers who shall be limited to 1 minute each. Will Ella Taylor please come to the podium? Ella Taylor. Next, we will hear from students who registered to speak at the hearing of the community via Zoom. Students, please remember that we must see you live with your camera on as you speak. If you are watching the meeting live on another device, please mute the meeting audio when you speak to avoid audio interference. Turn on your camera and begin speaking. Ms. Jones, please identify and admit our speakers.
Bella, please cut on your camera and you may begin.
Hi, everyone. I'm Bella Colra, and I'm a 7th grader from Lanier Middle School. And today I'm speaking to explain why we need to remove styrofoam trays from our schools. Schools in the U.S. go through more than 5 billion styrofoam lunch trays a year. These trays are made of petroleum, which is a non-sustainable and high-polluting resource. Plus, they contribute to the 270 million tons of plastic pollution in our oceans. We use styrofoam lunch trays for about 30 minutes, but whether these trays are incinerated, littered, or even recycled, a trail of toxic styrene particles will last forever. If we want to help combat climate change, it is absolutely necessary we switch to another option, such as reusable or compostable lunch trays. I understand that these options are more costly, but we are running out of time and we must put our planet first. The Dallas School District has already abolished styrofoam trays. It's time for HISD to take action now and do the same. As the 7th largest school district in the nation, we can inspire other schools to reduce our planet's carbon footprint. We are the generation responsible for saving the earth. We need to act now, otherwise there won't be another planet for future generations. Abolishing styrofoam trays is just a small step of what needs to be done to help our schools in the only home we have. Thank you for your consideration and time.
Abigail, please cut on your camera and you may begin. Abigail, please cut on your camera and you may begin.
Okay, hi. Okay, so my name is Abigail Espiritu. I go to Northeast Early College High School,
Abigail,
and I am part
can you cut on your camera, please?
It's on. Can y'all see me?
Yes, we can see you now.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm in the car right now. Okay, so my name is Abigail Espiritu, and I am part of the Climate Activism Club, and I go to Northeastern Early College High School. So one of the main things I wanted to talk to y'all about is one of our main concerns here is to eliminate styrofoam. It's a topic that y'all have overlooked a lot, and I feel like y'all should enforce it more and like other districts have done it, and I feel like it's maybe y'all don't care as much as y'all do for the other as y'all. Okay, so starting off, the Dallas district has enforced the excuse me. Okay, so mainly what I want to tell y'all is that y'all should try to use the biodegradable trays instead of using styrofoam. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Is that everybody? Okay. It's now time to hear from speakers to specific agenda items. We have 32 speakers registered to address agenda items this evening, who shall be limited to 1 minute each. Please speak to the agenda item you have signed up for. We also ask that speakers stay on topic and refrain from naming individuals, especially students, as their identity is protected under law, but you may name your own child. Our first item held for registered speakers is A1, approval of personnel services performed by the superintendent, including speaking engagements, panel discussion, workshops, et cetera, in accordance with the Texas Education Code, Section 11.201E. Will Gary Monroe please come to the podium? Mr. Monroe is also registered to item F1 and hearing of the community.
I dressed for the occasion. I saw your interview. So I'm gonna tell you, you ain't closing nothing. We say you ain't closing nothing. Now I want you and your team to bring it. Try. You're not closing one school. Before this lady makes a decision on anything pertaining to our schools, why don't you make your employee go to our schools? She's been here 6 months. She's the chief academic officer, and she ain't been to these schools. Now close them. You know, James Prince said something one time. If you want to go to war, we gonna take you to war. Come on, bring it. You and anybody you rock with. Because a general don't fight I don't fight battles, but I got an army. You ain't closing nothing.
Our next item held for registered speakers is C1 personnel. Our one speaker on this topic has registered to address the board via Zoom. Please remember that if you are signed up to speak via Zoom, we must see you live with your camera on as you speak. If you're watching the meeting live on another device, please mute the meeting audio when you speak to avoid audio interference. Turn on your camera and begin speaking. Ms. Jones, please admit speaker Sarah Castillo. Ms. Castillo is also registered to item I1.
Ms. Castillo, please cut on your camera and you may begin. Ms. Castillo, please cut on your camera and you may begin.
Thank you. I'm sorry about that. I didn't get logged in quickly enough. Okay, thank you for thank you for the opportunity to speak. I don't have much time, so I'll be quick. I have 2 kids in HISD, one's in 3rd, one's in 10th. I'm here today to ask you to please stop relying on STAR scores to assess the performance of teachers, principals, and schools overall. I'm a product of HISD myself, and this is going to age me, but I remember being subjected to cost guerrilla tactics. Teachers hated them, students hated them, and they sucked up valuable instructional time that could have been used to teach things like critical thinking skills, which would have been really valuable to me and maybe prevented me from failing my first semester at UT. But teachers did it because they were mandated to teach the test because that's what they were to be graded on. And it breaks my heart to see this still happening in my kids' schools. That was like 25 years ago, and we're still doing the same thing. So I'm here to ask you, to plead with you to change your perspectives on those scores and by extension, your policies that use those scores from this flawed testing instrument that we call STAR to make decisions that impact kids, families, teachers, and administrators across our great city. Thank you for your time.
Audience, please hold your applause until we're done. Our next item held for registered speakers is F1, adoption of recommended instructional materials for school year 2022-2023. Will Angela Box please come to the podium? And will Richard Calderon please take a seat on the front row? You'll be next. Mr. Calderon is also registered for the hearing of the community. Angela Box, Richard Calderon. Next, we will hear from a registered speaker who signed up to speak virtually via Zoom regarding this item. Again, please make sure your camera is on, mute any other audio devices to avoid interference, and begin speaking. Ms. Jones, please admit Speaker Ashley Solano.
Ms. Solano, please cut on your camera and you may begin. Ms. Solano, please mute your extra devices and cut on your camera and you may begin.
Hey guys, I'm speaking for my wife. Listen, this is the problem is this district is not very inclusive. My 9-year-old identifies as a homosexual, and with this bill in Florida, it's going to make its way to Houston. And let me tell you something, these teachers have not been very accommodating. My daughter also identifies as a lizard. Trying to get our teacher to put a terrarium in the class is absolutely impossible. So I really want to hold the school district accountable, because you guys will not, the social justice issues that you guys want to harp on, you guys are harping on the wrong ones. You guys are talking about CRT. Forget about CRT. Let's think about my daughter. Let's think about her being able to have her sexuality and talk about it, because I want to talk about it. I want my daughter to be able to read pornographic literature. I want my daughter to read the most adult literature possible. I don't want all these anti-vaxxers coming in there saying CRT, oh, my daughter can't read this. No, my daughter should have access like she is an adult. That's how my daughter is basically, you treat her like a trans adult.
Thank you,
So
Mrs.
that's
Solano.
what I want. I want fair treatment for my daughter. I'm sick of the Houston School Board trying to run circles.
Our next item held for registered speakers is G3, consideration and approval of term contract employment areas for reduction in force. Will Daniel Santos please come to the podium? Can you hold, I don't think the mic is on. Just a second. Is it on? No? Okay.
It's on.
It's on? Okay. Just speak up as much as you can. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the board and Superintendent House. My name is Daniel Santos, Executive Vice President of the Houston Federation of Teachers. I rise to speak on item G3. HFT cautions against sending mixed signals to our teachers and support staff. Advertising in his strategic plan, the superintendent confirmed that the community highly prioritizes and desires caring and effective educators and support staff. Adoption of this item may send a troubling and contradictory message to the community. HFT has received concerns this week from teachers whose principals have already quoted contradictory messages. We urge the superintendent to clarify and to commit to all our stakeholders that it will not capriciously reduce and dilute its workforce. We continue to hold steadfast to the vision that HISD is the best district for our students, our teachers, and support staff. Please protect that vision. Thank you.
Our next item held for registered speakers is I-1, approval of vendor awards for purchases over $100,000 and ratification of vendor awards for purchases under $100,000. Will Angela Angeles please come to the podium? As I call the next two names, please take a seat on the front row. Rosa Marin, Ann Sung, Michelle Blackwell. Ms. Blackwell is also registered to item I-2.
Hello, my name is Anna Angeles, and I am a senior at Northside High School. I believe we need serious efforts to fund the fine arts and extracurricular activities that will help students stay in school. We understand that there are other things you also have to consider, but I and many students can agree that we stay in school to be able to pursue something related to what we enjoy. It creates vast opportunities for us to explore what we wouldn't know existed or didn't pay much mind to because we were bombarded with STAR practice tests. The district's current vendor system is affecting my school's culinary program. I understand that the district limited the vendors we can use for a reason, but it's having unintended consequences on my school. I go to a school in a low SES neighborhood, and we don't have a Target or an H-E-B near us to get our supplies from. Those limitations create a problem because we are unable to create authentic and ethnic dishes since we're unable to go to places where they do offer more variety. Thank you.
Rosa Marin. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Rosa Marin, and I'm a senior at Northside High School. My experience studying for the STAR test was horrible and stressful every year, but there was an exemption. When I was in 5th grade, that was the first time I passed the STAR test the first attempt. Every other year, I read STAR test passages in 5th grade. But in 5th grade, my teacher knew my needs. She knew that my English wasn't good and I needed help. Instead of making me read through past STAR test passages, my teacher let her students choose whatever books they wanted to read. She said that we were comprehending better this way. Our teachers are good. They're trying the best to prepare us, but the district puts a lot of attention towards the STAR and does not focus enough in meeting the needs of students. I am a senior, and I might not get to experience these changes myself, but I want the future generations to see a change in our education system. Thank you for your time.
And Son.
Good evening. It's good to see you all. Thank you for the hard work that you're all doing to develop our next strategic plan and our budget for the next few years. As a parent of an HISD kindergartner, I thank you. I'm here to speak to item I-1 tonight, the ESSER air filtration project. That's a significant investment in improving air quality in our schools, and I want to thank you and commend you for taking this step. I've sent you a packet with research about how air quality is one of the most important in-school factors that can affect students' abilities to learn, to think, and indeed their academic performance. It's just an important investment that you are making. I urge you to make this a long-term commitment of HISD. If you go on Yelp now, you can see which restaurants have air purification systems. Wouldn't it be a great selling point for us in HISD to be able to know that the air our children are breathing is high quality, clean, and that we've got the best ventilation and filtration in Houston? Thank you.
Michelle Blackwell.
My name is Ms. Blackwell. I live in the near North Side, and I volunteer in a public school every day, all day. I appreciate the raises for the teachers, but there are also needs that are being overlooked. Smaller classroom sizes for the children, the need for librarians, functioning libraries, and more funding for the arts. These are the four essential things for the children's educational process. Usually when the budgets are being balanced out, it seems like the lower income schools in the lower incomes are usually get hit the hardest. So the next time the budget is, the budget is being balanced, I like for the community's input to be more in consideration and being part of the decision-making process, so the community can have more of an input on what they like to see implemented in the schools, the needs that they feel like what they want to see, as well as, of course, those of the HISD.
Our next item held for registered speakers is I-2, approval of current and anticipated donations for district-wide and school-specific programs and authorization to negotiate, execute, and amend necessary contracts associated with these donations. All our speakers on this topic have registered to address the board via Zoom. Again, please remember that we must see you live with your camera on as you speak. If you're watching the meeting live on another device, please mute the meeting audio when you speak to avoid audio interference. Turn on your camera and begin speaking. Ms. Jones, please identify and admit our speakers.
Mr. Ford, please cut on your camera and you may begin.
Hello, my name is Jared Ford, and I am the president of the Houston chapter of Amigos de las Americas. I'm thrilled to speak this evening in support of the growing partnership between HISD and Amigos de las Americas. I grew up attending high school HISD schools and graduated from Michael E. DeBakey High School for Health Professions in 2005. While in high school, I joined an Amigos trip to Michoacan, Mexico. The experience helped me develop intercultural competencies and problem-solving skills that have continued to help me appreciate and thrive in a global society. But most importantly, it allowed me to see beyond the limits that I and other influences in my life have placed on my identity. Today, I have the privilege of working with other students who are broadening their own identities growing their intercultural leadership skills and exploring their limits through their Amigos experience. But I am also aware of the dire need to improve equity of access to these experiences, which is why I'm here today to publicly express my personal and professional commitment as an HISD alumnus and as president of the Houston chapter of Amigos de las Americas to this mission and this partnership. Thank you.
Ms. Nathan, please cut on your camera and you may begin.
Thank you, and good evening. My name is Sarah Nathan. I'm the president and CEO of Amigos de las Americas. Thank you for allowing me to speak in support of our donation on the agenda tonight. Amigos has served youth in the Houston area since our founding in 1965. And last year, we collaborated with the North Houston Early College High School to bring an innovative virtual exchange and community service program to HISD students, the Classroom Community Impact Project. As the HISD student or teacher on the project explained, the students on this program gained an understanding of the world, and their world got a little bigger. They grew to understand a culture that they'd never been exposed to, and they got to see a different perspective on how communities can be helped, and that helped them greatly in terms of understanding the world around them. We are not only proud to further partner with HISD through the HISD Abroad program, but also with the Pranic Foundation and EF Educational Tours to work together to increase equitable experiences to global service and leadership experiences like this one. Amigos is committed to providing significant financial assistance to empower HISD students. Oh, thank you.
Ms. Williams, please cut on your mic and you may begin.
Good evening, Superintendent House, Board of Education trustees, and other stakeholders. Thank you for the opportunity to speak briefly. My name is Jenny Williams, and I'm the Director of Strategic Partnerships for EF Educational Tours, one of Houston ISD's new partners through the HISD Abroad initiative. Our donation to the district was approved at last month's board meeting, and I'm here today to speak along with HISD's other partners, Amigos de las Americas and Pranic Foundation, under Agenda Item I2. Together, our organizations are committed to helping HISD expand the scope of college and career exploration and increase equity of access to international travel for all students, particularly those who are economically disadvantaged. In addition to our monetary donations and the travel-based learning we'll be providing, EF Educational Tours will also be facilitating virtual exchange opportunities with EF's network of international language campuses and provide free access to high school and college credit, which we believe will help the district in achieving board goal number 3. Thank you.
Ms. Salunki, please cut on your camera and you may begin.
Hello, my name is Bhakti Solanke. I am the Executive Director at the Pranic Foundation, and we are really looking forward to having HISD students travel abroad to our Pune, India campus. We have a school that is K through 12 for under-resourced kids, and there's lots of benefits to traveling abroad. This program is based on service and leadership. So students that travel from the US to India will get to experience peer-to-peer learning, India's culture, as well as learn about the sustainability of the campus and work with students at our school. Along with that, there is mindfulness practices. So really putting together an integrated approach. Sorry, is that time?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Our next, or do I go on, Ms. Jones? Okay. Our next item held for registered speakers is I-4, approval of the March General Fund budget amendment. We will begin with our Zoom speakers registered for this item. Ms. Jones, please identify and admit our speakers.
Jules, please cut on your camera and you may begin. Jules, please cut on your camera and you may begin.
Hi, my name is Jules Beach. I am an 8th grader in HISD and I plan to speak about trust. I have attended an old rundown school and a much newer school. Having experienced both, I think passing a bond is important. Each student deserves a safe and healthy school environment. To pass a bond, you need trust. What I have picked up from following this week of HISD proposed budget freezes and future plans is that it was on. Hi, my name is Jules Beach.
You're doing good, Jules. Keep going.
Sorry. What I've picked up from following this week of HISD proposed budget freezes and future plans is that big, sudden changes without much time to adjust do not build trust. Not having transparency and discouraging open communication does not build trust. Not being able to show clear research and reasoning behind major changes does not build trust. Thank you. Sorry.
Mr. Williams, please cut on your camera and you may begin.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Christopher Williams. I am a teacher at Eastwood Academy. I believe that all stakeholders, including parents, students, teachers, and staff, and school administrators, have a right to know exactly how the proposed changes to funding will impact their schools. Therefore, I am calling on HISD leaders to produce a campus impact breakdown that clearly states how each school in HISD will be impacted by the proposed changes. This document should be made available to all stakeholders and include how the proposed budget will impact specific campus staffing and program availability by showing a comparison under the current budget model and the proposed budget model. Only after reviewing these impact documents should a final decision be made by the board. Thank you very much.
Ms. Anderson, please cut on your camera and you may begin. Ms. Anderson, please cut on your camera and you may begin. Please mute your extra devices and you may begin.
Hello. Thank you, trustees and Superintendent House. My name is Stacy Anderson, and I have two children who each attend two different Title I fine arts magnet schools in HISD. I'm very concerned with the proposed 2022-23 school year budgets and what appear to be significant cuts to especially fine arts magnets. And while I've heard in various forums that magnet programs are not going to be compromised, budgets that have been reviewed do show a very different outcome. When you have a school that has multiple magnet areas, but the budget proposes to only 2 magnet teachers, it's clear that magnets are going to be cut. So cuts to these magnets will only create opportunities for families to leave HISD for private schools or charter schools where these opportunities may appear to be more robust for parents and students. So we ask that you please review this process of how each individual school's budget is developed and how magnet is supported in these budgets. And because this should not be a one size fits all.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson.
Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from our speakers who registered to appear in our auditorium for I-4. Will Amanda Sorena please come to the podium? As I call the next 2 names, please take a seat on the front row. Amy Maddox, Heather Golden. And audience, please, as a reminder, we don't clap in board meetings just as a matter of decorum. If you want to show you can use the air clapping. Thank you.
Your goals for creating equitable baseline staffing across all Houston ISD schools are long overdue. But what I am hearing about this one-size-fits-all staffing model will not support successful current magnet programs. I'm a parent at a Title I school that is majority economically disadvantaged and has a thriving fine arts and dual language program. The proposed budget does not give us or magnet programs up and down our feeder track security. How can you build transparency and trust when we're handed a budget that does not take into account localized program needs or reflect how magnet programs are funded? What is being presented to the public is growth. What we are seeing in our budgets is loss of magnet choice opportunities that current Houston ISD families depend on and value. We need transparency and proof that this plan does not dismantle what is working for Houston ISD in its efforts to fix what needs fixing. So you said no programs would close. How can we be confident with what we've seen so far? We need community engagement. We need research from other urban districts. We need financial leaders guiding us. We need to prove that this is best for
Amy Maddox, Heather Golden, Mac Walker.
Good evening. I'm an HISD mom with 2 kids in high schools. Each of them had similar looking speech challenges when they were really little, and that resulted them in they missed key language milestones. Now, their care teams and I could have given them identical treatments, as that would have been equal. However, surgery does not improve sensory processing disorder, and occupational therapy does not heal a cleft palate. They needed targeted resources. I needed to know their exact diagnoses and what research-based treatments would work for each of them in order to trust their doctors and therapists. I also had to communicate clearly my expectations for my children's progress and hold their teams accountable for our ultimate goals for them. Research shows students need the same things my daughters received: equitable resources paired with accountability to high standards. Let's continue to provide weighted student funding to schools and add in
Mac Walker, Whitney Ferraris, Stella Stevens.
Superintendent House, I truly believe you have the integrity, drive, and competence to pull HISD out of its current crisis. My concern is that, as you've heard, as we move from a PUA model to an FTE-based one, we will approach equality at the expense of equity. With 200,000 kids, the diversity of needs is too great to be administered centrally without some mechanism to accommodate localized needs. Therefore, I would encourage the board and you to consider 2 options. 1, incorporate some form of earned autonomy, whereby principals at high-performing schools or whatever benchmark you set are allowed to adjust the prescribed model to better meet their local needs. So for example, not everybody needs a wraparound specialist. They might rather have a literacy specialist or a Spanish teacher. You've heard some people talking about fine arts. Secondly, if you are going to insist on it, y'all need to find some way to measure waste so that you can assess the marginal benefit that these people are providing, because my suspicion is there's gonna be a lot of waste that may come from this, and we don't want.
Whitney Ferrarse, Stella Stevens, Kat Creech.
How do we regain trust in our district, especially after it has been marred by scandals and a lack of accountability by its leadership? Why has our superintendent decided to freeze budgets unbeknownst to trustees and school principals? The lack of understanding and transparency is unacceptable. At no fault of their own, our trustees have no answers, our principals have no answers, and because of this lack of communication, parents are left to make assumptions and guess as to what the future looks like for our schools. Aside from the budget freeze, what benefits were the new model to schools that are thriving and have been fiscally responsible? I fear that a school like mine, Oak Forest Elementary, which already gets the bare minimum funding, will be forced to cut current budgets even further, forced to eliminate key employees that we love, forced to crowd enrichment classes, and forced to make space for positions and programs our community doesn't need or want. We have a PTA that has offset most of this, but are we expected to bridge the gap even further? I want to have faith, I really do, but you're making it hard when things are done behind closed doors.
Stella Stevens, Kat Creech, Lori Moreland.
Hey, good evening. Mr. House, I want to share with you that I'm a fan. I think your immediate approach is something that grabbed my attention. I understand you walked into a situation which was not your fault, but your problem. As a professional, I understand that sometimes you have to make uncomfortable decisions to get a winning long-term solution. Trust is the leading factor to getting there, as it leads for support and attracts allies. While there are lots of questions around your 5-year plan, I was willing to be patient to wait, play it out. The budget freeze bomb, however, left something undesirable, as it does not hold the pillars of truth and transparency you speak about. It was introduced after the 5-year plan and after the principal meeting, all without any discussions with people in the schools and their needs. The people in the classroom that teach our children every day and the stakeholders have been left in the dark once again. I would think that the time that it would take to write your plan, unveiling the bomb would be step one to the overall goal and it would be shared accordingly. Turning off the lights without a warning is something I would wish on no one. Perhaps given the opportunity, you might have.
Lori Moreland, Rebecca Fleshsig, Jeanette Garza Lidner. Lori, Rebecca Fleshsig, Jeanette Garza Lidner.
Good evening, all of you. Thank you so much for your time. And I want to start with just saying again, it's really hard to do all of this work out in the public air. And so I know that we're hearing a lot of reaction, a lot of criticism, and a lot of nervousness around what's going on. But of course, that happens when great changes are afoot. This is how it, this is change management. This is kind of the job that I do all the time. So I get it, and so I appreciate the hard energy you're going to put into this to get through this and bring us along. So with that, I want to say, bring us along. Let us come in and contribute. You have a lot of active parents and community members here interested in helping, and part of this means, the changes that we've heard and seen about are under this theme of equity, and equity to me is high quality teachers in every single one of our classrooms. The steps that we take to get high quality teachers in all our classrooms, including giving them not just the salary, but the time, the support, and the training that they need to make the.
This concludes our hearing of registered speakers for agenda items. We are now ready to consider the superintendent's agenda items. For the record, let it be reflected that the attachments to agenda items I-2 and I-3 have been revised. Board policy requires trustees to excuse themselves and abstain from all discussion and votes pertaining to contracts that might involve a conflict of interest. As defined in board policy BBFA local, a conflict of interest is any circumstance that could cast doubt on a trustee's ability to act with total objectivity with regard to the district's interests. We will now consider items held for abstention and/or discussion. Each month, all action items begin on the consent agenda. If a trustee would like an item held from consent, they need to notify Sylvia Trin by 8 a.m. on the Monday prior to the voting meeting. Trustees, as a reminder, everyone had an opportunity prior to this meeting to submit additional questions after agenda review to the administration. The Q&A document has been updated to reflect the additional questions. The updated Q&A was sent to all trustees via email is in your SharePoint under March board meeting documents and has been posted on the district website. The following agenda items are being held from the consent agenda. G2, consideration and approval of continuing contract teaching fields for reduction in force. G3, consideration and approval of term contract employment areas for reduction in force. H1, approval to amend and increase the design contract and authority to negotiate, execute, and amend all related contracts for the new Bel Air High School. And the following project numbers from item I1, approval of vendor awards for purchases over $100,000 and ratification of vendor awards for purchases under $100,000. 22010511, cooperative courier delivery services, 22090209, cooperative building materials, supplies, hardware, fasteners, industrial supplies, and related products, 22010803, cooperative T-Mobile wireless devices and related products and services. For each item of discussion, we will do 2 rounds of 2 minutes each. If an additional round is desired, actually we changed that, so it should be 1 round of 1 minute each because this is now the voting day. Our first item held for consent from the consent agenda is G2, consideration and approval of continuing contract teaching fields for reduction in force. This item is being held at the request of Trustee Allen.
Madam President, I was wondering if we can add F1. The Q&A didn't reflect. Can we add F1 to?
Can you make a motion?
I move that we add F1 to removing the item from consent.
Second, Allen.
We have a motion by Trustee Santos and a second by Trustee Allen. Any comments? Please vote. We have 8 for, 1 abstention.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion for item G2?
So moved.
Second? Do I have a second?
Second,
I have a motion by Trustee Santos and a second by Trustee Wade. Are there any comments or questions from my colleagues? I'm like looking around. Trustee Allen.
Thank you. This item about continuing contracts, riffing the continuing contracts versus the next item about riffing term contracts. Continuing contracts are those teachers that when they came in got a continuing contract and they're supposed to continue on. I came in on a continuing contract and voluntarily released it to become an administrator. I've seen people who were losing their job but were saved by a continuing contract and they're still productively working in education. They may also have lifetime teaching certificates, as I have, but I believe if the district signed the continuing contract with you, then you should honor the continuing contract that you signed with the employee. And if that employee is no longer effective, then justify your reason for discontinuing the contract. This will be definitely stop administrators from releasing if you're trying to release somebody because of ageism. I know that the longest contract on here has 60 years of experience, and the youngest continuing contract would be about 45 years of age with 25 years of experience. I know they stopped doing continuing contracts in 1996, but there were like 7 people and there was 1 person that got a continuing contract in 2003. So I don't know how all of a sudden 1 person 5 years later got a continuing contract. But I was just wanted to comment that I'll be voting no on this one because if you give me a continuing contract, I think you should honor your contract.
Please vote. G2. Consideration and approval of continuing contract teaching fields for reduction in force. 3, 4, 6 against, motion fails. Our next item held for from the consent agenda is G3, consideration and approval of term contract employment areas for reduction in force. This item is being held at the request of trustee Bluford Daniels. May I have a motion?
So moved, Santos.
Second, Guidry.
We have a motion by trustee Santos and a second by trustee Guidry. Are there any comments or questions from my colleagues? Please vote.
Am I coming?
Are you in the queue?
I am.
Okay.
I thought I was.
Go ahead, trustee Bluford Daniels.
It's not. Okay, it wasn't mashing, but thank you, Madam President.
Go ahead.
Superintendent, my concerns, I pulled that item because with our strategic plan going forward, we talked about supporting various programs, particularly fine arts and various things. And so when I looked at the listing for the teachers that could be RIFed or that are listed, then it was like a contradiction to what we were talking about as far as support for the strategic plan, nurses, counselors, et cetera. And everybody's there. So I was wondering if that's just a standard listing of people, because I feel more comfortable if those people that we're saying we're going to support 100% was not there.
And for clarification purposes, G2, this is an annual item, routine item that allows the district to reduce staff, make programmatic changes as well, and take steps to implement budget reduction if necessary through the reduction of force. Employees in critical shortage areas will not be subject to RIF, however. They may be moved to a different assignment in the district that includes ESL teachers, secondary math, science, bilingual education, special education, or nurses. But I do want to reiterate this is a routine item that, that generally the board sees on an annual basis.
Okay, and I appreciate that. I just hope that I would like to know that there's some comfort level in knowing that if those individuals come up, they tend to work in areas that are closest to their homes in most cases. So even if they're separated and moved somewhere else, then that could put a strain on them to have to go from one part of town to the other. We talked about, earlier we were talking about having teachers that aggressive, what's the terminology we use? Santos, that we use about the various teachers we want to have in our schools to make them for high quality teachers. So high quality teachers could be moving from one part of town to the other part of town. And again, that could be such a strain, especially with gas prices like they are, and not seeing them come down anytime soon. So just taking consideration that once we even consider moving some of these people, then let it be, if necessary. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but if necessary, let it be in the immediate areas close to where they are in proximity as possible.
And we'll certainly do our best in our talent office to ensure that when or if situations happen like this and educator has to move from one place to another, that we again do our best to ensure that they don't have a 30-mile travel. We had this happen earlier in the year, and we were able to make some accommodations over the course of time. Yeah.
Thank you.
Please vote. This is item G3. Nine, 4-0 against, motion passes. Our next item held from the consent agenda is H1, approval to amend and increase the design contract and authority to negotiate, execute, and amend all related contracts for the new Bel Air High School. This item is being held at the request of trustee Bluford Daniels. May I have a motion?
So moved, Hernandez.
Do I have a second?
Second, Guidry.
We have a motion by trustee Hernandez and a second by trustee Guidry. Are there any comments or questions from my colleagues? I don't see anyone else in the queue. Please vote. This is item H1.
Into the queue quickly,
Go ahead.
but I do have a question on that one. So it appears, Superintendent House, that there have been adjustments to this item previously? And so this is an additional, I'm asking, is this an additional amount, the 161?
So, and I may have Chief Paul to come on up, and while she's coming up, what I will say that this item allows the district to use funds to complete work that the board voted to allow to develop baseball, softball improvements at the complex. But Pondo?
Good afternoon. Basically, what this is authorization to pay for the design work that was voted on back in 2017. Amendment was made at some point to have an off-campus baseball, softball field. And so the city of Bel Air required a lot of supplemental things in order to do that. The old Gordon site was not zoned for that particular purpose. So the district went through several iterations of trying to get it right to design it, and the additional cost is a result of that.
Right, I understand that, but I understand, though, that there were other areas that were selected and it was not approved, and then came back in another area, selected, not approved, and now we're at where I'm assuming, we hope we have an approval, because
Yes.
I'm not necessarily sure about that yet. And if we have that approved, first of all, I'd like to know how much have we spent on all of the past non-approvals? And then secondly, is this going to be a final assessment of monies we're going to have to spend towards this baseball field? Because we're spending a lot of money on a baseball field when we have a lot of other things that need to be done.
Okay, so I would have to get back with you in terms of what the total amount was spent on this particular project. But this is for the special use permit that was required that the district have in order to build the softball and baseball field. And it is my understanding that this is it.
Okay, and I'd like to know that for sure.
Okay, I will provide that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And President Cruz, based on that, I'd like to make a motion to recess this or table this item until we have further information.
So I think we need to, there's already a motion on the table, is that correct?
But a motion, and it's not a motion to, it's not a motion to table, it's a motion to postpone. So you have a motion on the table to discuss it, but if someone wants to make a motion to postpone, that does take precedence. But we need to know whether it's just a motion to postpone that kills it for tonight, can be brought back on another agenda, or if you want to postpone it to a certain time, where it can only be brought back at a certain time, like next month, 2 months, what have you.
Oh, yeah, Trustee Bluford Daniels, is that okay? She's in the queue before we do a motion? Okay.
Thank you for Trustee Guidry for raising those questions, because I actually did have it pulled because I had some of the same questions. And so thank you. One of the questions I had was answered on the Q&A, which is why I didn't further consider talking about it. But when I thought about it, and I saw the off-campus field, and I've asked often about some of these campuses that don't even have lights. And so now we're going to pay for a survey or whatever it's called, to a diagram to have a field built off campus. My question is now, what have they been doing in the meantime? And then how has that been paid for? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, that's a lot of questions here. As I understand, this was approved by the board back in 2017. So to develop the baseball, softball field. So I think y'all are probably more familiar with the history than I am.
And I appreciate that, because there's probably not anybody here from 2017 except for one or perhaps. one trustee who's probably gonna get in the queue too, and thank you for that. And I knew that you all would be privy to it. Obviously, I wasn't either in 2017, but I just think, I want us to reconsider our priorities. We're talking about a strategic plan. We've got freezes on budgets on campuses, and now we're talking about spending money going forward to have a baseball, softball field built somewhere else. And then, that's not even saying, I don't know if that's the cost for the land, because I know.
That's for the, if I may, that's for the design fees.
That's just for the design.
Many times, the money's already allocated for the field, but this is for the additional special permit use that was required because of the space where we're building it. It was not zoned for that.
And I got it. I don't mean to put you on the spot. I really don't, Chief, and I really don't, Superintendent. I'm just saying, we need to go back and reconsider about the priority of that, because we've got campuses, people out here talking about cutting off funding and freezes at the various campuses. And now we're gonna move forward with getting a softball and baseball field, whatever the plan is, for X amount of dollars that was approved in 2017. Well, obviously, we're doing things different now that we weren't doing in 2017. I think that we just really need to renegotiate that. And I would ask my colleagues to reconsider us moving forward with that, because again, it's a matter of priorities. If they need somewhere to practice, they can come Finnegan Park.
We are already obligated on this project through contracts, so I would have to also provide you that information.
Trustee Santos?
Mrs. Paul? Chief Paul, I'm sorry, I apologize. So can you help me to understand, you're saying that the city wouldn't allow the permits, that's why there was a delay?
So again, this started in 2012, the 2012 bond. The school was awarded additional funds to build an off-site softball, baseball field. The particularities of it was that they were building it on the old Gordon school site that wasn't zoned for that. And so the city of Bel Air, no pun intended, but made us go through hoops and so forth to actually get the project done. So the architectural firm, PBK, spent a lot of time on trying to get the special use permit so that we could build.
So we have to abide by the city of Bel Air's zoning laws?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you so much, Chief Paul.
Trustee Dygard?
Thank you. My first question is, Mr. Superintendent, is this being paid out of bond funds or general funds?
This is a bond project.
So this is in
It's
that,
part of the
this is
2012
not taking
bond.
money out of classrooms or from
No, ma'am.
teachers? Okay. So, and if you may indulge me to answer a little bit of extra time to address the questions of my colleagues. I had similar questions when this came up. This has been a struggle with the city of Bel Air to get approval for rebuilding that building on the landlocked space that they have had and there was no longer space on site for baseball. So the district decided in 2017, or at some point, I mean, this was before my time on the board, to build baseball at the old Gordon site, which was Coulter North post Harvey. This all has been a very complex problem with the city of Bel Air that is not within our control. And some of these things became problems after the design and the construction began on the actual land of the Bel Air High School building. So just to provide some historical context, is probably the only person in this room that knows any of it. So not trying to persuade one way or the other, I'm just trying to give that historical context because I can hear that there are questions about, why is this, why is it coming up now? That's why. Does that help?
My opinion remains the same.
Okay.
Trustee Hernandez?
Mr. Superintendent, are there any ramifications for postponing this item to a later date?
Chief Paul.
Just a delay of the project.
Thank you.
Trustee Baker?
Just to clarify, you're saying we're in the middle of a project, right? from
Yes,
a
it
previous
was-
bond.
2012 bond.
Are you at liberty to tell how much has been spent on the project already?
I would have to provide that. Specifically for the baseball, softball field, I would have to provide that to you.
Okay, thanks.
Trustee Guidry?
I'm just curious, how much did we assess for this project in 2012? Do you know?
I would have to provide that to you.
Okay, and then also, Superintendent House, is there any reason why we did not reassess even having this completed? Because again, to Trustee Bluford Daniels' point, where are they practicing now? Do you know?
I'm not certain where the team is practicing now, but we can get that information for you.
Okay, and just okay, and another question, with respect to the bond funds that were assessed for this project, are those funds available to be reassessed, to your knowledge?
Chief Paul?
To my knowledge, no. This is a project that we already have under contract. It was added, as I said previously, in 2017, so we're obligated to finish this particular project. And this is one of the last projects we have to finish under the 2012 bond. And so your question is basically, are there additional funds left over from the bond, as I understand the question? We are still closing out multiple projects and doing the final review of them at this time.
Well, it was my understanding from the Q&A that there was about $83 million remaining from that bond?
No, that doesn't sound right. I have Andreas Peoples. You want to speak to this? Yeah. If you just give me a moment, I'll have the construction officer come forward and speak to that.
Thank you.
Good evening. The $89 million that was there, that number is incorrect. The total expenditure for the bond was 2.1. We've expended approximately 1.5 something of that. So the other reconciliation will not be accounted for until the total bond is financially closed. So we can't give the amount that's remaining until we reconcile the entire bond program.
Well, sir, then I'm just a little confused about why we received an amount that we did a Q&A, and certainly that could have been the response. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be harsh, but we're up here trying to make decisions, right?
That's correct.
And we have to make decisions based on the information that's provided to us when we do our Q&A, correct?
That's correct.
Because we have to try to come to a yes. And so the only way we can do that is if we have accurate information. And in one of the Q&A, we asked, what was the remaining balance from the last bond? And certainly had we known that you could not assess that amount until it was closed, I think that would have been the proper information to give to us, because we're here thinking that there's money left over that we maybe could use for something else.
Trustee Guidry, you're correct in that, and I think what the answer that you received was the remaining amount for the Bel Air project, not the entire bond.
No, that wasn't the question, but I'm going to go ahead and pass.
Trustee Guidry, just FYI, your time is up. The timer isn't buzzing for some reason.
Trustee Dygard?
Thank you. Three things. One, speaking to the delay, part of, or I think most of that delay, but I hope you all will provide this information in more detail to the board, was because we needed a location when Coulter flooded in Harvey. We needed a place to put those children while the new building was built. So they were put at the old Gordon School that is on that site. So baseball would have been done before that if we had not moved Coulter to that land, or to that building. That building has now been raised. They're rebuilding and it's
Trustee
baseball.
Dygard, can you pause for a moment? If you are speaking in the audience, it's really hard for us to speak, and if you're disruptive, we will ask you to leave.
It is baseball and softball. I know that there are temporary accommodations being made for them to be at other locations. If you would please, administration, provide to the board the Title IX requirements of this, because I think that we may, we can temporarily be out of it while we're building this field, but I don't think I don't know, but it may not be in compliance with Title IX. And this, I think, solves the Title IX challenge.
Trustee Bluford Daniels?
Well, I just wanted to point out to Trustee Guidry's point about the balance, because it was my question that was asked on the Q&A about what was the balance. And so that's what we got was the, oh, am I ringing now? Am I ready yet? 8.89 million. So it was said that the total was the 2012 bond, when I was sitting out there raising cane, was $1.2 billion. And so when I asked the question about how much was left, and we're talking about utilizing that money for this softball, baseball field. So if we still have it in our savings account or somewhere, and we're getting ready to use it now, that's why I wanted to know how much was left. And I still say we have to look at priorities. And I'm not really sure that that's, even with the Title IX issue, a priority. So I thank you for asking for that to be tabled.
I think what we have to understand in this particular situation, whether it's a priority or not, we have to understand there's an obligation. And if there's an obligation and the will of the board is to do something different, then I think we have to understand there's going to have to be some legal ramifications around what that looks like. This was all before us, period. It was all before us. So what we simply need to understand is that if the will of the board is to do something different, understand that it's going to come with another price tag as we move forward. So I just want to interject that in that it's fairly new to me too. But just know that this is where we are. This is what we've been handed. And we want to do our best to move forward. Regardless, but it's the will of the board as we move forward. But I just want you to understand what the options are as we go down this road.
Trustee Santos?
Thank you, Madam President and Superintendent House. Delaying will cost money. Canceling will cost even more money. Time is money. So if we've made those contracts, they need to get done. If this is an issue about inequity, that's what I'm hearing about, then we will fix it in the next bond. So that is what I mean. The contracts have been made, and this is already done. Thank you.
Please vote.
The table?
I don't think you ever, did you finish your motion?
I don't think the motion was completed, and remember.
I actually would like to request a round 3 because I'm in the queue.
Okay, can you make a motion for that?
I'd like to make a motion that we have another round of discussion on this particular item.
We have a motion from Trustee Guidry and a second from Trustee Bluford Daniels. Please vote. This is voting for another motion.
Another round.
8-4, 1 abstention. Motion passes. Trustee Guidry?
Yes, I just want to say to my colleagues, you all are basically making speculations, first of all, that delaying and postponing so that we can get adequate information would cost us money. She didn't say that. She didn't say that. But I do believe as a board, we have an obligation to look at this instance. We have to look at these contracts. We have to look at the money that's being applied to all of these items that we're approving. And there's nothing wrong with us asking for additional time. We can set the time today when we come back and have an opportunity to look at how much money we're spending on these projects. Even if it's for nothing else than us to learn from it. Because obviously there's been some money that has been spent, dedicated, and it may not have been our fault. I'm not saying it's our fault. But we had to have known that Bel Air had some requirements that we should have probably looked into before we spent $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. I want to know what that amount is. And I think as a board, we have an obligation to know so that we can make the best decisions that we can make on behalf of spending these funds that our constituents have placed into our hands. Thank you.
Trustee Santos?
Thank you, President Cruz. And I apologize, Trustee Guidry, because you're right. There's no excuse to have been given misinformation or wrong information. So if that is the will of the board, please understand that yes, I will go with the will of the board. But Superintendent House, there will be no financial repercussions with the postponing of this item.
I don't know if there are specific timelines in the contract, so I don't want to speak out of turn. We'd have to get that insight and information out of the contract. If Chief Paul may join us, she may have some additional information about the contract.
This item is specifically for the design to pay the company that made all these different designs for us, or for the school district, for Bel Air High School softball, baseball field. I'll consult with legal to determine what our obligation is in a dollar amount, and how much we've spent on Bel Air High School as well as the softball, baseball field. And hopefully that will satisfy some of the questions.
Trustee Wade?
I make a motion that we table this until next month's board meeting, or postpone it for next board. But not on the date. We didn't finish.
So do we have a second?
So clarifying motion and postpone.
Postpone, yes.
Next month, she
Next
said.
month's trustee meeting.
Okay, so we have a motion by Trustee Wade and a second by Trustee Bluford Daniels to postpone until the next regular board meeting, which would be April. Any discussion on that specific motion? Trustee Hernandez.
We have hearings on the 24th, just for the sake of time. Would y'all be okay with postponing till the day of our hearings, till the 24th, March 24th?
Yes.
What's the date on the table?
The date on the table, as I understand it, Trustee Dygard, is your next regular board meeting in April.
7th.
So Trustee Hernandez is trying to change, like mechanically, how does that work for the purpose of voting right now?
She would be amending Trustee Wade's motion. She'd be making amendment to that motion.
Making a friendly amendment to Trustee Wade's motion to table this motion to March 24th. Postpone this motion till March 24th.
Thank you. We have a motion, an amendment to the motion by Trustee Hernandez and a second by Trustee Bluford Daniels.
I just have a question.
Any discussion?
Superintendent House, do you believe that would be enough time for your staff to get us a response, an adequate response to the questions on the floor?
We will.
Thank you.
Any other, I don't see any other colleagues in the queue. Please vote. So we're voting, just for clarification, we're voting on the amendment.
Correct. You're just voting to make it the 24th. That's
Okay,
correct.
so to postpone to the 24th. 8-4, 1 abstention. Motion passes.
And you got to do one more. So you've changed the April date to the 24th date. Now you need to vote on the complete motion to postpone to March 24th. Yes.
We are voting on H1, approval to amend and increase the design contract and authority to negotiate, execute, and amend all related contracts for the new Bel Air High School as amended.
You're voting on the original motion to postpone. The only thing
Oh, sorry.
was change the date
Okay.
of that motion from
Thank you.
the April board meeting date to the March 24th date. So now you just need to vote on the full motion to postpone.
Okay.
And then you're done with the item.
Okay, so full motion to postpone to March 24th. not the April meeting. Trustee Dygard, are you in the queue for this?
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
An additional request for information from the administration to my colleagues is the status of the current, how much we've already spent on this site, because it is in progress. The trucks are out there. It is in progress. So how much, if we don't pay this money, how much money are we walking away from that we've already spent? To then, I think that's important information for the board to understand as well.
We'll provide that.
Okay, I'm just clarifying. Thank you.
Please vote. Nine, 4, 0 against. Motion passes. Our next item held from the consent agenda is I-1, approval of vendor awards for purchases over $100,000 and ratification of vendor awards for purchases under $100,000. Project 22010511, Cooperative Courier Delivery Services. This item is being held at the request of Trustee Allen. May I have a motion?
So move, Santos.
Second, Guidry.
I have a motion by Trustee Santos and a second by Trustee Guidry. Trustee Allen?
Thank you. I did ask a question about this on the Q&A. My question was, please explain the TXMAS cooperative with only one vendor. How can this be competitive when we have over 30 vendors in Houston? The answer was, the district would be utilizing the State of Texas cooperative contract, specifically with FedEx for local, state, and out-of-state shipping needs. Basically, your answer is, we will be using FedEx. I got that. My question is this a monopoly with only one vendor? I'm not concerned about whether TMXAS and whether they're a cooperative that works for the state of Texas. I don't represent them. I'm concerned about the money spent from HISD. Why are there no other competitive bids? And I know I've been talking about this for a while, and so that you said that you have, if the cooperative doesn't accept but one, then we have to do the cooperative. So my question is about best practices, saving money for the district. Why only FedEx? And if FedEx is the only one they can give us, do we need to change to doing something else?
Thank you for your question. Ms. Legata?
Yes, Trustee Allen. So I think what might be confusing is the title of this project. It is not for courier services. This is for mail services. We had to use the same title that the State of Texas Comptroller's Cooperative uses, but this is not for a typical courier service where we just need someone to pick something up and deliver it across town. This is for mailing, and it mails in-state, out of state. So this is mailing, not necessarily the typical courier service. For courier services, we can use local courier services if we need to send something across town to get a signature and then bring it back to the Hattie Mae White Building.
So basically, this is saying that if we want to mail something, we have to use FedEx. My question is, where is the competitive bidding?
So this was competitively bid by the state of Texas, and FedEx received the best rate. So this is a rate, it was competitively bid by the State of Texas Comptroller's Office for everyone in the state of Texas to use. So all K through 12 districts, all state colleges and universities, and then the state of Texas.
So do we choose to use this cooperative, or are we forced to use this cooperative with FedEx?
We're choosing to use this cooperative.
Which means that this cooperative only says FedEx, so we can't use anybody else for mailing, like United States Postal Service.
We do use USPS.
But they're not a part of this cooperative. And before you told me that we can't use anybody that's not a part of the cooperative.
No, ma'am. We use the United States Postal Service.
So this one is saying that this is an additional vendor.
This is an additional vendor. The USPS, we're not required to procure that. We could use the United States Postal Service.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Trustee
It's going to
Blue.
be my same kind of question too on my next one.
Okay.
Trustee Bluford Daniels.
Well, I'm just glad y'all said, I'm a postal retired manager, so I'm just glad you said USPS is a choice. I'm a former member of 28 years of NAPS, National Association of Postal Supervisors. So I was gonna promote that and push that. Okay, thank you.
Please vote. This is item I-1, Project 22010511. So, 8-4, 0 abstentions, motion passes. Our next item from the consent agenda is I-1, approval of vendor awards for purchases over $100,000 and ratification of vendor awards for purchases under $100,000. Project 22090209, cooperative building materials, supplies, hardware, fasteners, industrial supplies, and related products. This item is being held at the request of trustees Allen and Bluford Daniels. May I have a motion?
Second, Santos.
I have a motion by trustee Bluford Daniels and a second by trustee Santos. Trustee Allen.
My question was, on the Q&A, please explain the Omnia partnership with Home Depot as a vendor. And it says, the question says, I know Lowe's is also an HISD vendor, so how is it that it's not relative to this item? And the answer was, Lowe's is currently board approved and available for campuses and district and departments to utilize via Project 2022 maintenance, repair, and operations supplies. I got that because in the question I said, I know Lowe's is also an HISD vendor. My question basically is, usually on the item, it will say this is an added vendor. Is this making Lowe's an additional vendor that we can use for supplies and contract stuff?
Ms. Legato?
So this particular project is with Omnia Partners. So we're asking for you to approve Home Depot. From this, you've already approved Lowe's on another project.
Got it.
So we have, and essentially this project is used by our facilities department, specific trades, electricians, plumbers, et cetera, when they need to have access, weekend access, night access to parts. They have Home Depot or Lowe's to go to. This is approving Home Depot. You've already approved Lowe's.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't a monopoly. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Seeing no other colleagues in the queue, please vote. Nine, 4, 0 against, 0 abstentions. Motion passes. Our last item, our last item held from the consent agenda is I-1, approval of vendor awards for purchases over $100,000 and ratification of vendor awards for purchases under $100,000, Project 22010803, cooperative T-Mobile wireless devices and related products and services. This item is being held at the request of trustee Bluford Daniels. May I have a motion?
Second, Hernandez.
I have a motion by trustee Santos and a second by trustee Hernandez. Trustee Bluford Daniels.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you. I won't be long. I just had some concerns when I see dollar amount. Y'all know I'm frugal. I'm always talking about shopping for something on sale or discount. So when I saw this, I thought the responsibility, when I was with the government postal service as a manager, we were handed out devices. And first there were beepers, okay, so I'm telling my age, don't laugh. We had beepers first and then we had the flip phones. But regardless, if any of us lost those devices, even as managers, we were responsible for the replacement. And so when I saw that and I saw the dollar amount, I started to wonder what our process is here in the district for devices that we pass out. I know we can't have the children necessarily accountable for them because we have an insurance for them as well. But I thought about administration, even with us trustees, if there was any accountability for those devices, if we should lose them. And if it's not, I think that there should be some sort of responsibility because we're talking about saving money. And I think that that's an opportunity. We have to be, as Trustee Cruz often says, financially responsible and be good stewards of the dollars. So I'm just making a comment. I think there's something, if it's not done, I think we should look at it. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Seeing no other comments, please vote. Nine, 4, 0 against, 0 abstentions. Motion passes. And the item pulled today at the table from consent is item F1. Do I have a motion?
Second.
I'm trying to pull. F1, adoption of recommended instructional materials for school year. Sorry, who had the motion? Trustee Santos and a second by Trustee Bluford Daniels.
Correct.
Is there any discussion? Trustee Santos.
Yes, thank you, Madam President and Superintendent House. So, Mr. House, for F1, does this include the Eureka component too?
Chief Burt? No, this is just for health and physical education.
Just health and physical
Just, yeah.
education? Okay, and when will we be expecting to see that, the responses until our Q&A
For Eureka,
for the curriculum?
within the next week, we're gathering that information.
All right, thank you so much. That's all.
See no other comments, please vote. Nine, 4, 0 against, 0 abstentions. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting held on February 10th, 2022, and the special meeting held on February 17th, 2022?
So moved, Santos.
Second, Hernandez.
I have a motion by Trustee Santos and a second by Trustee Bluford Daniels. Is there any discussion? Please vote. Nine, 4, 0 against, 0 abstentions. We are now ready to consider items discussed in executive session. Are there any motions? Who has the motions? Oh. Are there any motions from closed session? Are there any motions from closed session?
Thank you, President Cruz. I move that the board grant authority to the administration to settle the special education matter of Noah F., BNF, Tara, and Ben F. versus HISD, TEA mediation docket number 034, DM 0122, on the terms discussed in closed session, effective March 11, 2022.
Second, Santos.
We have a motion by Trustee Guidry and a second by Trustee Santos. Please vote. Eight, 4, 1 against, 0 abstention. Motion passes.
I move that the board grant authority to the administration to settle the special education matter of Jason M., BNF, Virginia, and Mark M. versus HISD before the Texas Education Agency, TEA docket number 133 SE 0122, on the terms discussed in closed session, effective March 11, 2022.
We have a motion by Trustee Guidry and a second by Trustee Santos. Please vote. Kendall. 9, 4, 0 against, 0 abstention. Motion passes.
I move that the board grant the authority to the administration to settle the special education matter of Dylan H., BNF, Shayna, and Eric H. versus HISD before the Texas Education Agency TEA docket number 144 SE 0222 on the terms discussed in the closed session effective March 11, 2022.
A motion by trustee Guidry and a second by trustee Santos. Please vote. Eight for, 1 against, 0 abstention. Motion passes.
I move that the board approves a finding of no good cause for educators to resign or abandon employment contracts without district consent under sections 21.105C, 21.160C, or 21.210C of the Texas Education Code as discussed in closed session, and authorize the superintendent or his designee to submit a written complaint to SBEC to impose sanctions as discussed in closed session effective March 11, 2022.
A motion by trustee Guidry and a second by trustee Santos. Please vote.
Is this the one?
8 for, 1 against, 0 abstention. Motion passes.
I move that the board approve the resignation and full and final release agreement with Brandy Lira, principal of Eastwood Academy, on the terms discussed in closed session effective March 11, 2022.
A motion by trustee Guidry and a second by trustee Santos. Please vote. 7 for, 0 against, 2 abstentions. Motion passes.
I move that the board approve the balance of the closed session personnel agenda, including specifically that the board approve proposed terminations of continuing term and probationary contracts, approve end-of-term terminations of probationary contracts, and that the board approve proposed non-renewals of term contracts, that the board approve issuance of fourth-year probationary contracts, and that the board authorize the superintendent or his designee to provide notice of same, that the board approve separation and release agreements, that the board approve withdrawals of contract recommendations, and that the board approve the issuance of final orders on contract terminations and non-renewals as discussed in closed session effective March 11, 2022.
Second, Santos.
We have a motion by trustee Guidry and a second by trustee Santos. Please vote. 8 for, 0 against, 1 abstention. Motion passes.
I move that the board ratify the filing of a Texas Public Information Act appeal in the matter of Attorney General Letter Ruling Number 0R2022-03857.
We have a motion by trustee Guidry and a second by trustee Santos. Please vote. 9 for, 0 against, 0 abstentions. Are those all the motions? Thank you.
Oh, yes.
We are now ready to consider the balance of today's agenda. Do I have a motion to accept the balance of today's agenda by consensus?
So moved, Santos.
Second, Bluford Daniels.
We have a motion by trustee Santos and a second by trustee Bluford Daniels. Are there any comments or questions from my colleagues?
Nada, vámonos.
Please vote. 9 for, 0 against, 0 abstentions. We will now conduct our hearing of the community so that speakers may be heard no later than 7 p.m. in accordance with board policy. Well, we're ahead of schedule. Good. Only those who registered by noon yesterday may speak this evening. Copies of handout materials must have been provided to board services by noon yesterday. Again, all speakers are being reduced to 1 minute each this evening as per board policy due to the large number of speakers for agenda items and the hearing of the community. We have 36 speakers registered for the hearing of community this evening. I'd like to remind speakers that when addressing the board, please stay on topic and refrain from naming individuals, especially students, as they are protected under the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. However, naming your own child is permissible in the course of stating your concern. The board encourages and welcomes comments and input from our community, but we cannot respond to or deliberate on any subject that is not included on the posted agenda. That is, the board cannot deliberate or respond directly to a speaker in this format. For speakers appearing in person, we ask that you please speak directly into the microphone. The clock on the wall to your right and on the podium will count down your time and will signal when your time is up. I ask that you please respect our procedures and other speakers and end your remarks promptly when your time has expired. Please remember that if you are signed up to speak via Zoom, we must see you live with your camera as you speak. For those Zoom speakers who are watching the meeting live on another device, be sure to mute the meeting audio when it is your time to speak to avoid audio interference. Turn on your camera and begin speaking. And audience, please remember to refrain from clapping or speaking or making any kind of noise over another speaker. We'll begin with those appearing live in our auditorium. Would Erica Roan please come to the podium? As I call the next two names, please take a seat on the front row. Amy Maddox, Jacqueline Haley. Erica Roan, Amy Maddox, Jacqueline Haley. Go ahead, yes.
Hi, good evening. My name is Erica Roan, as you know, and this is my son, Duro Dina. I am here because I feel my son was racially targeted by the head baseball coach at Bel Air High School. He was told to chop that hair off of his head. He was humiliated in front of other students in the hallway. The baseball coach told him that he was a poor representation of what Bel Air High School represented and what Bel Air baseball represented. He laughed after that as he heard the other kids taunting him, saying that he looked like Albert Einstein or he got electrocuted. I'm here to let you know that I am going to seek legal representation for this because this was totally uncalled for, and I and myself and my son are now in therapy because of it, because we are emotionally scarred. And nothing has been done about it. Nobody has called me or contacted me. I've reached out to many people and no one has contacted me.
Thank you. Amy Maddox, Jacqueline Haley, Retha Thomas.
Thank you. I like the strategic plan, and I also recognize that in order to implement it, there are going to be hard decisions to be made. But I want to talk about the trust and the transparency part of the plan. Cutting the schools and the community out of the discussions about what's happening in the schools does not engender trust. Having a principals meeting about the budget and not telling them that the next day their budget is going to be frozen does not engender trust. Telling principals that they cannot share the draft models with the SDMC does not engender trust. Much of the plan that I hear from the top sounds great, and that's not what we're hearing at the school level. It's divorced from what we are hearing, and the surest way to lose trust is to have it sound good from the top and that not be the reality. This should be a conversation, not dictated from above, and I urge the administration to talk.
Jacqueline Haley, Retha Thomas, Sybil Hunter.
I'm here to speak on the importance of teaching accurate historical facts, and I'm basing that on a quote from Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, released a statement on House Bill 3979. He said when parents send their children to school, they want their students to learn critical thinking without being indoctrinated on misinformation, charging that America and other constitutions are rooted in racism. And if you're going to talk about the Constitution, look at Article 4, Section 2, which addresses runaway slaves. That is accurate. That's accurate, and there is plenty of critical thinking that can go on with that. So I'm saying that if you are going to limit what is discussed and is in the curriculum, then we're going to end up with people who we vote on that don't know anything about history. Thank you.
Retha Thomas, Sybil Hunter, Lizzie Revels.
Good afternoon, everyone. I sit here and I listen to all this stuff that's going on at HISD, and everybody, got their own opinion. So also respect. And we are having a respect campaign. One of the things that we have got away from HISD is respecting each other. We got to get back to respect. Everybody have an opinion, and you need to stop and listen to what their opinion is too. Just because your opinion is what you want, and you want this right here, but if we're not gonna never come together. We'll never come together until we sit down and listen to each other. I applaud the superintendent for coming in and making some changes in HISD. Changes that should have been changed 30 years ago. Each year, things are getting. We can't stand here and just say we're gonna do a black thing, or we're gonna do a white thing, or we're gonna do a brown thing. Y'all, we got to get away from that.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. You're out of time. It rang. Thank you. Sybil Hunter, Lizzie Revels, Laura Henry. Sybil Hunter, Lizzie Revels, Laura Henry.
I'm Lizzie Revels. Basically, I want to say that I appreciate y'all giving this time, but basically, I want y'all to understand that the last time we was here, but before the pandemic, that we supposed to be getting a certain percent for the ones that worked more years than other person, but we did not get that. They just gave a 3% all the way around. But we really, really need to address that. In all the department that we are for the non-professional, we need to be treated right and we need to be treated fair. Give us, let us have a different percentage than the higher up. Because at the end of the day, I want to at least go to the store and buy my steak every now and then. At least that, I shouldn't have to work, 3 and 4 or 5 jobs. I was here on Good Morning America back in 2007, and they came to HISD with me because I had to work 5 jobs to make ends meet, and I'm still trying to make it. So I'm just saying that.
Lizzie Revels, Laura Henry, Sam Smith. Lizzie Revels. Oh, that was you, sorry. Trying to keep down the list. Laura.
I actually came with my child who registered. Have the students already spoken? Can I give my space to my child? Because she brought me. Okay, is that all right?
Yeah.
You can, Ella, take my spot. She's coming up. This is Ella Taylor. She registered. We must just not have gotten here yet.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. Hi, I'm Ella Taylor, and I go to MPVA. Today I'll be talking about why I disagree with the notion that HISD should ban the book Flamer. In your last board meeting, someone uttered a quote that they thought was inappropriate from the book. In my view, the author used that as a way to paint homophobic teenage boys who bully Aiden, the main character, as inappropriate jerks. That was not what I noticed or particularly cared about in the book, but What I remember is not the most inappropriate quote, but was the moment when the main character wants to kill himself, but his consciousness comes out and tells him that his friends or his family still care about him, and that even if they didn't, he's still alive and here, and that he should not kill himself because he matters. When he walked out, his friends were still there for him. Do you think that's inappropriate? Flamer is not an inappropriate book, but a kind book and a book that tells you that no matter what, you matter. I think it would be a real shame to ban Flamer.
Sam Smith, Lizette Ramos, Brandy Ramos.
Good afternoon, Superintendent, board members. Trustee Daniels, thank you for all the work you're doing in District 2 with North Forest. Thank you. Superintendent, we are not closing any schools. We've been there, we've done that. We're not closing schools. I think the cutoff, if you want to lay off people off, you need to start from the administrative building. You have people in positions who are disrespectful. Let's start with your area superintendent for Crockett Elementary. Went to a school trying to help a parent. She refused me to allow me to attend the meeting with my clients. We need more supplies at schools. Principals need more support from the administrators. This administration, you're doing a great job, but we need more support. You need to have more input from the community members and parents and understand because you are new to Houston, and we've been here and we've done that. So we're asking you, before you make a decision, have a community meeting and have input from the community members, parents, and
Lisette Ramos, Brandy Ramos, Brittany Torres.
Sexual assault is real, and it's happening at Crockett Elementary. My name is Lisette Ramos. The principal there handled it very poorly. My nephew and my niece had been in a situation like that, and she and Angela, Malin, Sabrina, Kobe have handled it
please refrain
wrong,
from saying names.
okay? And you guys need to do something about it, because we want two things done. One, we want the principal out of that school. Two, we want you guys to actually educate our children about sexual harassment prevention. It needs to be in the curriculum. It needs to be taught. It needs to be done, because there's a lot of cases, a lot of touching, and kids are not speaking up because nothing is being done. And the ones that do speak, they're not being listened to. So it's time for you guys to do something about it. Put it in the curriculum. Change your curriculum. Update it. Revise it. Whatever you got to do. If you do help.
Brandy Ramos, Brittany Torres, Axa Garcia.
Good evening. I'm here to advocate my child. She was sexually assaulted at Crockett Elementary, and the principal at Crockett Elementary failed to protect her. What I'm asking from all of you is for you to give us a better leader, because she failed completely at her job, not only for my daughter, but for many other students at Crockett Elementary. If you want more information on my case, I have a petition that has over 700 signatures on change.org, and it's titled Parents Demand Change, because we demand to have a better leader that will protect our daughters and stop living in this society of boys will be boys and cover up sexual assault. Because I'm here to tell you that as long as that principal stays there, y'all will continue seeing me here, because I'm my daughter's advocate, and I will never apologize for that. Thank you.
Brittany Torres, Axa Garcia, Daniel Sines.
Good evening. I'm here because my son was sexually and physically assaulted at Crockett Elementary as well. And this happened back in August. It took till today for someone to assess the problem and give me a solution. Nothing was done. There was never a report to you guys, the HISD police. The parent of the other student was never notified. So I'm asking for you to help terminate the principal at Crockett Elementary, because not only is that going on, but there's other sexual assault cases going on at the school, and I am aware that the principal has not reported. So that's what I'm asking you today.
Axa Garcia, Daniel Sines, Joseph Parks. Axa Garcia. Daniel Sainz.
Good evening, everyone. President Cruz, HISD trustees, Superintendent House, thank you so much for allowing us to come up and speak before you. I'm actually here to extend on a conversation that I started with you all a few weeks back in regards to the Montessori program and extending that into the East End. As you guys know, the Jeff Bezos Academy has opened up a pre-K Montessori program there in the East End. We're very excited to have that. But we also have a cohort of students that will be coming out in the school year 22-23 that will need to continue that program. And we're asking that you guys give serious consideration to opening a Montessori Elementary program there in the East End, utilizing what you already have. You have some great facilities out there. Some facilities do need to be updated, but we can use that to extend that program in the East End. I'm with LULAC 60 and the Education Committee and Leadership ISD alum.
Joseph Parks, Aaron Henry, Jackie Abreu Hill. Joseph Parks, Aaron Henry, Jackie Abreu Hill. After her, Marco Troiani and Sandra Rodriguez.
Last month, a trustee explicitly expressed that it's a safe space for students to have open conversations with librarians about their sexual preference and/or gender identity. Why are people in the academic profession thinking about sex and our children and the same thoughts or actively teaching it? This is not a political matter, but an alarming realization children are being groomed for pedophilia. Pedophiles groom children by using their position of authority to sexually abuse a child. Predators seek children who are emotionally vulnerable and ostracized by their peers or misunderstood by their parents. Predators also ensure their victim is willing and compliant and unlikely to tell their parents or police. There were students who were sexually assaulted. From what we heard tonight, sexuality is a private matter. We need to stop sexualizing children in school. This is a parent's role, not a teacher's. Thank you.
Marco Troiani, Sandra Rodriguez, Huidalis Flores.
I'm happy to see that illegal mask mandate is over. Happy that the district is back to operate as it should, lawfully. I'm not sure what motivated the change, the changing science, the politics, or the public opinion. Regardless of the reason for the change, the fact remains that the districts need to rebuild the public trust. I have some suggestions for that. First, please stop sexualizing our kids at a very young age. I don't want my kids to be exposed to that. Second, please concentrate on fundamental education only. That is the purpose of the district. Third, I want teachers to be properly compensated and respected. You attempt to minimize the risk of the virus. How about the violence due to the poor discipline? Most importantly, our kids need good role models, not a profane rapper. Don't expose our kids to the darkness of this world. We need more light and transparency in this district. Remember, light kills viruses.
Sandra Rodriguez, Huidalis Flores, Ruth Kravitz.
Good evening. My name is Sandra Rodriguez. I'm the Advocacy Director at Latinos for Education, a graduate of HISD, and a proud parent of a senior at Lamar High School. Latinos for Education's mission is to develop, place, and connect essential Latino leadership in the education sector while mobilizing Latino voices to promote practices and policies that remove barriers to equitable education opportunity. I want to extend our gratitude to Superintendent for the development of this strategic plan. We appreciate the administration's focus on prioritizing the equitable allocation of resources because we know that Latino students growing up in poverty can succeed with the right resources in place. We are eager to learn the specific details of how the administration will work with schools to implement the initiatives outlined in the plan. Our families share their top 3 priorities, and notice they are included in this plan. Families will continue to hold the administration accountable by monitoring student progress and equitable resource allocation. Thank you.
Huidalis Flores, Ruth Kravitz, Lorena Ashley Hope.
Good evening, Superintendent and members of the board.
Como madre de un hijo
preescolar, estoy emocionada de escuchar sobre su plan estratégico y los desafíos que traerá con él.
As a mother with a preschool student, I am excited to hear your strategic plan and the challenges that will come with it.
Me alegra saber que tomaron en cuenta las preocupaciones de los padres.
I'm glad to hear and to know that you have taken into consideration the concerns of the parents.
Esta semana que buscaba la presentación del plan, no lo encontré en español. Apenas ayer me fue proveído, ni su presentación tiene subtítulos.
This week, as I was looking for the presentation of the plan, I couldn't find it in Spanish. Just yesterday, it was provided to me. Your presentation does not have subtitles.
Mi pregunta es, ¿por qué no empezar con las escuelas D o F para que puedan ser beneficiadas por igual?
My question is, why don't we start with the schools D or F so that there can be benefits, equal benefits?
Planteles nuevos. ¿Cómo beneficiará a nuestra escuela que tiene 30 años de construida, espacios reducidos y servicios limitados?
New campuses. How will our schools benefit, especially our school that is 30 years old and it has reduced space and limited services?
En adición, quiero presentarles un problema de seguridad de nuestra escuela Benavides. Solicitamos una cerca por la seguridad de nuestros niños. Es un lugar inseguro, cualquier persona puede traspasar. Esto ya ha sucedido en el pasado.
In addition, I would like to present a security problem at our school, Benavides. We asked for a fence to be put in for security reasons so that for our students, it is an insecure place and any person can trespass. We have asked about this in the past.
Que nuestros hijos merecen estar y jugar en un lugar seguro. Ya lo hemos hablado con la directora.
Our kids deserve to be in a safe place. We've spoken to the principal about it.
Señor House, el comité de padres de nuestra escuela Benavides lo invita a que la visite. Gracias por su atención.
Mr. House, our PTO of our school invites you to come and visit it. Thank you for your attention.
Ruth Kravitz, Lorena Ashley Hope, and Jenna McEwen.
Good evening, and thank you for giving me this time. Shoving 2 years' worth of learning lost from COVID into a single year is hurting children. We, of course, all know this. So is poverty and time spent on STAR and test prep. We know we can add 2 months of instruction by simply getting rid of the STAR. Of course, HISD can't make STAR optional. That's up to the state and the federal government. But HISD can do something. I ask that you get rid of the universal screener contract given multiple times per year and recover time for learning and dollars for the budget. Regarding the budget, I'm hopeful that you'll be able to prioritize funding for schools whose parents are not wealthy enough to support PTOs to quote, unquote, bridge the gap. Also, I support raising teacher salaries to make HISD competitive with other districts, but don't do it by cutting teachers, increasing class size, and closing schools. Instead, cut contracted services that don't help kids, cut vanity projects like Achieve 180, thank you for suggesting that, cut excess central office positions, centralize some functions.
Lorena Ashley Hope, Jana McEwen, Daniela Mackin. Lorena, Jana, Daniela McEwen, Mackin, sorry. Yoli Villarreal, Placido Gomez. Yoli?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
First timer, so be gentle. Hi, thank you for letting me speak. I'm Yoli Villarreal, assistant professor at UT Health and vice chair of diversity and inclusivity. As a school district, we have said that we support Montessori education. I'm so glad to hear this as 2 of my kids go to Garden Oaks Montessori School. In fact, I've had personal conversations with you, First Vice President Santos, where you've directly confirmed your support for Montessori education, and I thank you and the district for continuing to support this. If we don't want to pass yet another unfunded mandate, then the district needs to fund the 3 foundational pillars of Montessori education. Those are teacher assistants, teacher trainings, and Montessori materials. The proposed magnet funding does not do this for our Montessori schools. Garden Oaks is a Title I school with many underserved children whose parents select the school because they want Montessori education for their kids. I'm asking that if the district says they support Montessori education, then they fund the 3 essential pillars necessary for that education: teaching assistants, teacher training, and Montessori materials.
Placido Gomez, Earl Hirsch.
Trustees, Superintendent House, thank you so much for having me. My name is Placido Gomez, and I'm a program director at Leadership ISD. And I also proudly serve as a mentor at Chavez High School as part of the Ascending to Men program. I was here last week for the agenda review, and I was more than alarmed to see the results from the TAPER report, specifically reading and math. And I see this as a huge emergency that we as a community need to do something urgently to step up. For me, stepping up has been volunteering at Chavez. It's been tremendously rewarding, and it's something I plan to do going forward for the rest of the year. And I'd like to urge you not only to volunteer at HISD schools, but to also urge your constituencies to do so as well. As people who have gotten thousands of people to vote for you and some to volunteer for you, you are the perfect people to urge your constituents to do this. It's not going to completely solve all the problems that we have, especially the structural problems, but it will be a really good idea to get the community involved. It will get us closer to the problem so that we can be more informed to solve the structural.
Earl Hirsch. Next, we will hear from registered speakers who signed up to speak virtually via Zoom. Again, due to the large number of speakers tonight, comments are limited to 1 minute each. As per board policy, and each speaker's Zoom connection will be terminated at that time. Ms. Jones, please identify and admit our speakers.
Delphina, please cut on your camera and you may begin. Delphina, please cut on your camera and you may begin.
Thank you, Ella.
Anna Palma, please cut on your camera and you may begin.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, please, you may begin.
All right. Good evening, trustees and Superintendent House. Thank you for the time and for all your work that you do for our kids. I'm here to share my concerns of the proposed budget plan. One of the first things I was excited to see in the strategic plan is to build trust and transparency with parents. I feel like that was broken already. The proposed budget change is without any transparency or time for parents or the principals to respond or any backup research. We need transparency, ability to provide input, and research that supports the budget plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ferguson, please cut on your camera and you may begin.
I'm here to share my concerns of the proposed budget plan. One of the first things
Ms. Ferguson, please mute your extra devices, cut on your camera and you may begin. Ms. Ferguson, you're on mute. You may begin.
I will begin by saying I was extremely optimistic listening to Superintendent House speak of his strategic plan with words expressing his plight to gain the trust of his principals and community through transparency. In the past few days, I have observed acts that are the furthest from transparency than you can imagine. Our schools and principals are currently crippled by a spending freeze given without warning or input from trustees or school leads. I have questions. Are we actually practicing earned autonomy when we hear rumor of centrally controlled budgets and staffing for all campuses? Why weren't the trustees included in this decision to freeze all budgets? How will we fund these drastic campus changes including those high-functioning schools? Why are principals not allowed to share these tentative budget cuts with their SDMC? We welcome leadership, we welcome equity, and we welcome innovation. However, in light of past years, we are owed transparency, well-planned ideas, thoughtful and responsible budget changes, and consideration of the well-being of all children in HISD.
Thank you.
Highly crippled by a spending freeze given without warning or input.
Sister Mama Sonia, please cut on your camera and you may begin. Sister Mama Sonia, please cut on your camera and you may begin. Mr. Segrin, please cut on your camera and you may begin.
Board members, thank you for your time. I spoke at last month's board meeting, but I was upside down on Zoom, so I thought maybe I could join again and make a better impression today. I would like to urge Houston ISD to transition away from styrofoam lunch trays, which are horrible for the environment, and switch to biodegradable lunch trays. I know that this issue is not your #1 priority. Environmental sustainability frequently gets pushed aside for the hot button issue of the day. However, this is a real problem. The production of styrofoam trays contributes to global warming and puts Houstonians at great risk of future flooding. After their use, styrofoam trays take hundreds of years to decompose. In that time, they break into smaller and smaller pieces and get into our food and water supplies. Styrofoam is making Houstonians sick, and it is linked to health issues ranging from cancer to neurological disorders. Luckily, many school districts have already transitioned away from this awful product. Dallas ISD and Austin ISD have done it, and there is a coalition of 18 school districts called the Urban School Food Alliance, which I was pleased to see that Houston ISD joined in Saturday.
Thank you, Mr. Segrin.
Luckily, many school districts have already
Delphina, please mute your extra devices, cut on your camera, and you may begin.
Okay. Let me put my camera on. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, HISD board members and trustees. My name is Delphina Torres. I am in District 1. I am on the SDMC at my local elementary school, and I was calling, asking y'all to see, I had heard y'all were going to be voting on the SB 195 soon, and that the funds would probably go to HPD. I was wondering why HPD and not let the funds come to the community where SB 195 was born, the Josue Flores Act. If someone can get back to me.
Thank you.
Probably go to HPD.
Sister Mama Sonia, please mute your extra devices, cut on your camera, and you may begin.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello? 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 I'm here. Hello? 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 It's crazy. Hello? Can I be heard? Hello? Am I on yet? Hello? Hello? Yes. As a proud member of Jack Yates High School alumni and Lockhart Elementary School, I learned about who I was and proudly had my held up high when I was taught to be a proud little Black girl from 3rd Ward. Back then, our teachers had to go the extra mile because there were not that many history books out there to tell us who we were. Right now, there are many books out there, and our students must learn the truth about the Middle Passage, the truth about the Civil Rights era, the truth about Reconstruction, and the truth about the racist history of this America, Amerikakka, and the KKK. Therefore, please, please allow our teachers to teach the truth. There is no such thing as critical race theory being taught in our schools, but please allow our teachers to teach the truth. We also want to remove the name of Delmar Stadium and remove that racist legacy because he was a racist, and our boys and girls should not have to play under that. Respect us, listen to us. Y'all hope respect us. I hope you really care about us.
Thank you.
That concludes our hearing of the community. Mr. Superintendent, do you have any reports for us at this time?
Madam President, I do have some comments that I'd like to make. First of all, this past month we were honored to be able to celebrate our Principals of the Year. So I'd like to acknowledge who they are at this particular time. At the elementary level, Ms. Trilla Epps at Roberts Elementary was our Principal of the Year at the elementary level. And at the secondary level, Ms. Rita Graves at Lamar High School. So we're extremely excited to have those two individuals to represent the school district and the hard work that they provide for the district. Very, very proud of who they are and what they do on a daily basis. Also would like to share some insight around something that I'm sure many of our students are excited about, which is Camp Spark. I'd like to thank our teachers and campus leaders who will be supporting Camp Spark next week during spring break. It'll provide additional opportunities for students to receive the learning interventions that are needed during this spring holiday, especially as we recover from the learning loss during COVID-19 and the pandemic. State of the Schools. As many of you are aware, March the 11th will be the Houston ISD Foundation's 2022 State of the Schools event. This will be an opportunity to share the strategic plan with several throughout our communities as well as our stakeholders. So very excited about tomorrow and being able to share more about the strategic plan. Also would like to address recent budget and hiring freezes for the duration of this fiscal year. We have put the spending freeze into place, and I want to make sure that community and individuals are clear about the why. We put this in place simply because it supports our ability to meet the budget deficit for next year. If funds aren't spent by now during the school year, in many cases they aren't spent. As an elementary school principal, I know what this looks like, but we do have a process in place through our school's office that any spending related to academic needs can go through this approval process. We want to continue to meet students' needs, but ensure that we're putting in controls in the necessary place given the deficit and our plans. Also want to reiterate that our next budget workshop will be focused on more engagement and conversations around the strategic plan. Excited to continue to do that. We will end the presentation by providing trustees and the public with a high-level overview of the process and the timeline that we will focus on and make immediate and long-term budget decisions during that particular time. Lastly, just want to wish everyone a safe and rejuvenating spring break. It's been a long 9 months for everybody in our district, and we're looking forward to our students and our staff time to have that opportunity to rejuvenate. We look forward to closing out the academic year on a strong note. Madam President, that concludes my remarks.
Thank you, Superintendent House. We are now ready to hear reports and comments from board members. Please limit your time to 1 minute per trustee. We'll start with you, Trustee Ellen.
Thank you. First, I want to say go rodeo, support our students, have a safe spring break, and enjoy your St. Patrick's Day. Thank you.
First, I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. We always appreciate what everyone has to say. I enjoyed my first community meeting and a Timber Grove community meeting as well. Please know that I am full support of all of our teachers and excellence in competitive pay, as well as I just look forward to working with the board again and again and again on all the work that lies ahead.
Thank you, President Cruz. So just want to say happy Women's History Month. We rock. I want to thank the Netches, Northside students for coming out tonight. And just remind the board that we have to listen to our students. They know their needs, they know what they like, and we can't compete with their own desires, right? Like they're amazing. And just want to thank Ella, who spoke tonight. She was a student, and that's what happens when we create critical thinkers. They're well thought out, articulate, wonderful students. So thank you, students, parents, for coming out, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming out this afternoon. You've heard a lot of interesting dialogue tonight, back and forth, and so just we want you to know that that's what we're here for. But I'd like to also say thank you to the board services for assisting me with my community meeting on Tuesday night. I couldn't have gotten it done without their help. And I want to say to Oak Forest Elementary School, we are listening. We hear you. I've had conversations with several people at Oak Forest Elementary School, and so we're listening, and it's not falling on deaf ear, and I want you all to know that. Thank you all again. For those that attended, we had over 60 people, I think, that attended the Zoom call, and so we're going to work out the kinks, just like the strategic plan. We had a few kinks just on a Zoom call. So just like we all resist change, but we're going to work collectively to get it done. Thank you.
We're about to get out like earlier than I think we ever have. So everybody have a fantastic, safe, and relaxing spring break. As I tell my kids, have fun, make good choices.
Thank you, Madam President, Superintendent. Let me just say I want to thank the entire community for coming out tonight. Mr. Monroe and all of you, even some of my former candidates out there. This is month 3 on the job for me, and I too like to highlight my first community meeting Monday. Many people that came that was on the Zoom call from the shared decision-making committee and other groups. And I also want to let the teachers and principals know that I support them and all the employees. We're headed somewhere. The school district has, for years, been off the radar, but due to certain circumstances, it's now on a broader radar now. And so I'm grateful to have this opportunity to serve Jackie and all of you that were there during the beginning. This is a very, very unique position. Children, the scripture declares, are the inheritance of the Lord. And so I look forward to blessed days ahead, and happy spring break and happy rodeo to everyone. God bless you.
Feliz Día Internacional de la Mujer, and have a happy and safe spring break, everyone.
Gracias a todos por estar aquí esta noche. Just want to thank my colleagues for leaning in. It's a really busy season for us. We're going to have lots of conversations this semester, and looking forward to our next workshop and the workshops that follow. I know this is still in the beginning stages of conversations, and grateful for those that in the community that have been reaching out to us as well. Muchas gracias. La próxima reunión de la mesa directiva será el 14 de abril y la reunión de revisar la agenda será el 7 de abril. We look forward to seeing you at our next regular board meeting on April 14th, 2022. Agenda review for that meeting will be held on April 7th, 2022. There being no further business, this meeting is officially adjourned at 7:24 p.m. Buenas noches.